Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to wow, this is a long time coming, an episode of the Dojo! For those unfamiliar, the Dojo was an old series that I was planning on doing, but subsequently just fucked off and forgot about for the longest time, wherein I tried to do kind of tutorial-based things for people who were just starting to get into Mortal Kombat and wanted to kind of get on the level of, okay, I'm ready for online and learn from online. So basically it goes, in my head, it would go from beginner, like straight up beginner, first time playing Mortal Kombat X, to where I was at, to the online people I tend to run into, and then maybe from learning from these guys, get to tournament quality characters, or people like the Pig of the Huts and the Sonic Foxes and all of that. So in this one, we're going to be looking at X-rays and a little bit of meter stuff, because there's some interesting stuff with meter and X-rays that some people might not know about. For example, the fact that meter is built by damage, not by hits. This could be very important for people just figuring out how to do their combos. Do they go for the big damage, or do they go for more hits? Or do they go for corner carry? This is kind of the beginning bits of that, and then the kooky things with X-rays are kind of the main topic, because with X-ray attacks, they scale pretty oddly, and I'll be explaining that in the video. Hope you enjoy this one, and as always, DFTBA. The first thing I'm going to very quickly show is how X-ray affects your opponent's meter. But before we go any further into that, some basics on how meter is built from getting smacked around. Watch what happens when I do a combo that is only 5 hits. It's 26% damage, so note how much meter has been built. It's been built enough so that if I do it 3 times, or if I do it twice rather, you'll see that Triborg's meter is built up to about 90%. Another basic combo and he would have gained a bar. However, let's try something different. Let's try something a little bit different. Gotcha. That's more hits, but because the combo does almost half the damage, Triborg builds half the meter. Gotcha. So big hits build more meter than a bunch of smaller hits overall. 7 hits to 14% versus... versus... I guess I can't land that one, but the point is, the more damage you do to your opponent, the more meter is built, which is very important because some of your longer combos could be fueling the fire for your opponent to strike back and strike back hard. So, while a lot of people might be thinking, oh, I'll just go for the biggest damaging combo possible, and I generally encourage this as well, pay attention to your opponent's meter. I'd save your big combos for perhaps when they have less than 2 bars, and when your combo is not going to build bars. And if, in fact, your character builds, and in fact, if the opponent has 2 bars, go for your longer but fewer hitting but less damaging combos. It builds them less meter towards their X-ray attacks, and might force them to block early, thus allowing you to go for your more meatier but less meter requiring combos, if that makes any sense. Basically, if they don't have a breaker, go for your damage, but if they do have a breaker, go for your longest combos possible. Anyhow, back on track. So, watch what happens then when I hit Triborg. Pay attention to his second bar, because I'm going to get him to wake up drone. Actually, I'll get him to wake up Crab Bomb. Now watch what happens to his bar. Pay attention. See how much meter has been built? Now watch what happens when I do an X-ray. Jax's X-ray is about 32%, so you'd expect it to build about 3 times the amount of meter as a normal back 2. But as you can see, it doesn't. It only builds off of the first hit. It's only ever the first couple of hits of an X-ray that build the meter. What this means is that if you have long combos, if you have X-ray combos, you're only going to be building for X amount of damage, which could mean that half of your combo is not building any meter at all. Here's what I mean by that. Sorry. Crap, how am I gonna do this? No, if we leave it like that, it should be okay. If we leave it like this, then just have him wake up with the Far Cry alarm again. Is it on refill? It is on refill. Here we go. But watch what happens. 27%. 44%. But it only builds the same amount as those first 27%. So, as your X-ray combos are quicker, or let's say... Okay, that does not work. You'll notice a trend. 43% only really builds to the amount of 22%. In essence, they build half of the bar that they should build. This can be kind of handy in some situations because they'll be expecting to get to a breaker, not be in a breaker, and then you could go for a meterless. Which, as you can see with Jax, is not exactly something that I'm particularly good with. But you'll notice something. You would have also noticed something rather interesting as well. Let's go back to the X-ray for a second. Watch what happens when I do 2 hits. Each hit during this part of the X-ray, 3, 7, 4, and I think that was 9. Each of those hits were not damage scaled, even though if we do the X-ray raw, each hit is the same. Notice anything? Now what happens if we do 3? Now after 3 hits, the damage scaling for the bone breaks will start to kick in. But this is huge. This is something to watch out for with some characters. Some characters have big launchers that do a lot of damage. And their X-rays, as a result, can have big combo potential for short amounts of bar. A quick side note about that. What I meant by that was the combos that these characters do big damage for few hits for no bar. So, as you'll see, I'll be using Kotal Khan. So, for 0 bar and for like maybe a few hits, under the right circumstances, Kotal Khan can do big amounts of damage before the X-ray. And because of how X-ray damaging scaling works, at least with his X-ray and with most characters' X-rays, Kotal Khan's X-ray combos can be downright scary. I hope that clears up the air. For instance, why don't we have a look at Liu Kang? Or actually, rather, Kotal Khan. Now, Kotal Khan can be home to some of the most dangerous X-ray combos by sheer damage in the game. My personal top with Kotal Khan is 74%. However, I have seen some combos go as high as 250%. But that requires lots of parries. Parries, which, as you may or may not know, I am not good with. But pay attention to to Kotal Khan here. This cut will increase the next 3 hits of his attacks' damage by 50%. But it will only enhance the first strike of the X-ray and restart the dagger. So what do? Only go for those first 3 hits. And yes, it's only 55%, but it is worth noting. Now, if we add Kotal Khan's Crystal Totem, this totem increases damage by 33% versus the Cut's 50% boost. When you combine these two, however, Kotal Khan's first 3 attacks, when both are active, will do 99.5% more damage. Your combo damage will essentially double. This is where Blood God Kotal Khan can really shine. If he can afford to get both of these off, the damage is staggering. 71%. But you might be wondering, what about that damage scaling we saw earlier? Well, the way X-Ray's damage scale... That was not a good example. That was not a good example either. The first hit will scale, but these subsequent hits here, the 5s, the 4s, and the 3s, they will only scale after 3 hits. And even then, they scale at the same rate as the other hits. So while this strength scales after the first hit, the X-Ray will usually scale after 3 hits and go down at the same rate as your typical combo strings. What does this mean for you? This means for you, for some characters that have big damage in a few hits, if you can end your combo in an X-Ray, it may actually turn out to be worth it, at least to some degree. Quick update. I should have done my research a little bit more. It looks like, from reviewing the Kotal Khan footage, and as you can tell, I'm not scripting this at all, I'm just going improv. Show what you know, and learn as you go along, apparently. With certain examples of the scaling, so Kotal Khan's 3% on the stab does 2.6, whereas most of the time damage scaling gets dropped by about 10%, it looks like. So, for example, when you watch Raiden's X-Ray, instead of it being 1% for certain shocks, it'll be 0.95% with certain shocks. If it was 3% at those rates, it would be, if the 3% combos should be pretty close. They should be 2.85, but with Kotal Khan, it turns out it's actually 2.4, so it's almost double what that rate is. So it looks like when it starts to scale, it will do double the scaling, and then scale subsequently like combos normally would. Just a heads up and a correction that I should have seen coming. And yes, I did change shirts, but that's because Superman. I'm correcting mistakes! Of course, I believe that a lot of the people who will watch this video probably have better combos overall. For example, I personally know an Ermac that can pull 41% with 1 bar, and to pull a similar amount of damage for me would take at least 2 bars, maybe even all 3. So, that's something to keep in mind. However, there are some exceptions. In fact, there are 3 notable exceptions to this rule. They are
Righteous, Alien,
and
Raiden.
These 3 characters' X-rays are affected immediately by damage scaling on their X-rays. Here's what I mean. You're guaranteed to experience damage scaling, no matter if you combo into this X-ray or not. Remember from Jax and Kotal Khan, how when the X-ray was activated, the brakes did not start to suffer from damage scaling until about hit 3 in a combo. That lightning is 1.9 instead of 2. These subsequent shocks are suffering from some damage scaling. Now it's 31%. But you'll notice it's not the same as damage scaling from a combo. It's not that each subsequent hit adds more damage scaling. It's the lightning hits the damage scaling, and every subsequent hit is hit at that same level of damage scaling. Well, what this means is that Raiden's X-ray combos are next to worthless. This X-ray is suffering from 6 hits of damage scaling as opposed to Kotal Khan's, who would suffer from an equivalent to about 3 or 4. This X-ray combo could have been a lot stronger if Raiden's X-ray had the same scaling properties as other X-rays. Pretty interesting, no? If you did find this interesting, let me know in the comments section below. I hope you enjoy, and Jason, you're looking at me funny. Don't be looking at me like that, man. Don't be looking at me like that! Ah!